Yeah, it's April 14th, and we do have Nicky apart. Nothing was terribly wrong with him. It's merely a situation where you're going along and you whack the throttle, try to open it up all the way, and I get some coughing and sputtering there. So we got a jetting issue, and I'm not starting you off at the beginning here. So let me tell you what I've done so far. I took out the main jet, and I found that it was currently a 165. And I installed a 162, that's stock. So I put in a 170. I was gonna put in a 168, but I didn't have any 168s. I really wanted a 168, thinking that's what I needed to do. Get a little more gas in there, but maybe it's choking on air and I need less gas. But the results of the 162 was my problem was worse. Crank it open, just try to whack it, and it sputters worse. So I put the 170 in and it's better, but it still does it. That means I probably have a problem elsewhere. And I'm thinking I need to raise the clip on the needle, which is probably on 3. Raise the needle in order to richen it. However, I'm not absolutely sure where it's at, and you got to take the carburetor off for that. Double check what size pilot slow jet I've got in there. You can change your main jet with the carburetor on the bike. Say that's what I did. I've got a 70 in there. 170, 170. Also, yesterday I had the float bowl off while the carb was on the bike. That's a pain in the ass, but you can do it. It's easier when it's not on the bike. So there you go. You can get a visual on that. Got your splash guard, and there's a place where one fork can slip in, and it should be, when you're pointing down, it should be the one to the left. In other words, the groove rides the shaft on the main. Let me see if I can give you a close here. This proper installation. Hang on. Proper installation of the splash guard. This particular notch here in the splash guard is to accommodate the float bowl standpipe. Okay, so looking at the pilot jet or slow jet, I have a 62 in there. 62 is stock, and this particular setup, Nicky, has a White Brothers pipe on it, and it's had a bore job. It's been freshened. It hasn't been bored. So with that said, just the pipe alone could give requirements that it get jetted away from stock for optimal performance. Like I say, this has the stock pilot jet on, and I've got a way big main. I got a feeling some of this sputtering I get when you crank the throttle, and it's only when you really crank it. Normally the bike runs great throughout ours. It's only if you try to choke it that you can choke it. So we still need to take a look and see where the needle's at. I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of the slow jet and change the needle now, or maybe leave the needle alone. I'm not sure. I got to see where it's at. The stock jetting is 62 and 152. A standard increasing jetting would probably be 58 and 155. But I've got different jets, so unfortunately I may have to go trying this over and over again until I get the success I'm looking for. In my bin here, I've got, that was a 62. I'm going to 65. Okay, there's your 65. Let's double check our air fuel mixture. Air screw, 2.5, and a hair more. air-fuel mixture can run, the specifications call for 2 turns out, but it can run anywhere from 1.5 to 3, depending on what your tuning requirements are. So that has to be determined when you get down to the nitty-gritty and start fine-tuning. 170 is not the answer, so we'll change that out. Now, if I go way back in history, before I created Nicky was created out of my 1996 Honda, which in general, everything about it was good. But if I remember correctly, it had this same problem. And why not? Because it's essentially the same pipe, header, motor, build, carburetor adjustments in Nicky as my 96 had. It's just I put all those parts on Nicky. You get what I'm saying there? According to the general breathe better adjustments, you're supposed to put on a 155. Stock is 152. Okay, here's a 155 right here. It's a brand new main jet, factory OEM main jet. Anytime you put a pipe on, you're typically going to rejet that after that. I'm basically reverting back the general specs you start with if jetting for the installation of a pipe. However, as I read this morning, you don't just put a pipe on and jet to any specific jetting. It's to be determined still. That's all I'm going to do down here on the bottom for this particular adjustment session. A cutoff valve kit consists of your diaphragm and spring. The diaphragm itself can't have any holes in it. This is to prevent backfires when you shut the throttle off suddenly. You got a diaphragm with no holes. It's spring loaded on one side or the other. You get a spring and an O-ring, so there's not much to it. The diaphragm itself makes a seal around the outer housing. And the O-ring has to seal here, so you need that O-ring badly, because the passageway from the center of the diaphragm is relying on that draw and pressure there when you shut the throttle down. So consequently, it has to do with, interacts with the different passageways inside the carburetor. When you've got this all apart and you spray carburetor cleaner through, you can watch it come out of these various holes here. One of the problems with having more than one XR is you forget what you've done to one or the other. Start keeping a diary with all the different things you did to it, what the mileage is and the date. Now, the diaphragm itself in here, when you take one of these apart that's been together for a long time, and they certainly go bad and are leaking air past the diaphragm itself. What I was going to say is the diaphragm can get stuck in there, and that could mean it needs replacing right off the bat because it's all deteriorated. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of leftover residue from the diaphragm itself there, and we'll need to check this up to the light. We're not seeing any light through it. I don't think it's very old. Consequently, we're reassembling this right back together again. So special care was taken to make sure that my O-ring was in place up top here. One other thing you'll have to do is take this set screw out in order to get your slide out. Okay, so with the slide in hand, we can now take a look at our clip here. Factory specification is with your clip on the third spot. And indeed, that's where we've got it. Well, there's a total of 5 on this carburetor, and we're right in the middle. So no matter which way you count, it's number 3. But if you were counting, you would start at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, raising the needle richens the supply. Lowering the needle or raising the clip makes your carburetor lean. So, I'm thinking in conjunction with lowering the clip, which raises the needle and makes it richer, plus the 155 main is where I want to go. I'm going to put it together like that. We're going to get this back on, and then we're going to do a test ride to see if it still coughs and sputters. It was working well. It really wasn't coughing much, but on a trail, if you wanted to wick it, it could cough and sputter. So there you go. I've taken a look at it and I've made some adjustments. Put it back to a starting point where I can make further adjustments. I dislike taking the carburetor out, but throughout time I have found the easier ways for me to do it. And the carburetor goes in from the left side here. It comes out on the left easiest. You want to loosen the 2 top airbox screws and the side airbox screw. So you can slide your airbox back just a little bit. You slide the airbox back, and with your clamp all the way removed off there and out of the groove, take the screw out. Get that out of the way. Move your airbox back. Same with this clamp. Open it up almost all the way and you can get it out of being an obstruction. Then airbox is back a little bit, carburetor back a little bit, out of your intake boot and out the left side. So I'm going to install that in reverse order now. And so I do it this way because I found it to be my easiest way. You've got your overflow tube here, which can be routed later, but let's get it going down in there just to start with so that we don't have it so much in the way. One thing I forgot or haven't mentioned yet is I take off the whole throttle cable stay assembly. It makes it easier to get the cables in and out of your carburetor and out of the way. This is a good time to get those cables in. It's way easier here than once the carburetor's installed. And I just go ahead and leave the stay loose without the Phillips screw in it. Now at this point, you're wanting to get your carburetor inside the air cleaner boot partially and clear this intake boot. Okay, I have it in the boot. Then get your carburetor right into place. There's a notch on the carburetor that meets a notch on the boot. You want to line up with that. Make sure you're shoved in all the way forward. You can go ahead and tighten down your carburetor right now. I like to have mine right up top, facing to the right. You do it any way you want. Now it's the screw for the throttle stay. It's hard to get a screwdriver on it because the throttle adjustment, the idle adjuster knob is right in the way. And the throttle cable is right there too. So now we're going to test throttle operation. It's working fine. That's good. I'm putting Nicky back together now for a test run with this new jetting. And I thought this was a good time just to look at the individual components without the seat and tank on there. Because you may not have seen all the Nicky installation stuff I did. Got the rectifier inside the air box. I hated to do that, but I had an extra air box at least. I like to run the stock air cleaner on these. There are those of you out there who did not get your XR600s brand new, and whoever had it before you did not route things the right way. There's a place for this breather pipe, and there's a place for this overflow tube. It goes down behind the rear motor mount. Send it out around the back of the swing arm. You can pull all the slack out of it now so that it looks like this up top. And then here's what probably a lot of people don't know. That's what this tong is for right here. You got your tube, and you can just slip it underneath the tong here. So there it is coming out. And if your carburetor overflows, it's just going to drip out and down. Here we go. Nicky's all assembled, and we're going to do some testing. So we have 155 main, 68 slow jet, and we raised the needle, or dropped the clip, down to number 4. Okay, get ready for a test. This would be the kind of thing right here. Okay, so there was a stumble. It seemed to be better. Better than the 162 main. Just at first judgment, you know, where would you go next? Well, I think at this point, with the ease of changing the main out with the carburetor on the bike, I would just try changing that. See, it goes good like that. Here we are at about 4,200 RPM, and it handled it pretty good. Yeah. That's almost there. Yeah, it handled it. Yeah, see, it handled it again without a single cough. So that time, when I hit the throttle wide open, I let off only slightly, and there was some sputtering at that point. It's like when you're getting it on and then let off, sometimes you can perceive something. This could just end up being trial and error as to, you know, I can theorize about it all day, but nothing beats getting out riding and seeing what's going on. Idle is good.
Okay, so far so good. I don't think it's perfect though. You know, I changed 3 things at once, so that makes it hard to define.
XR600 carburetor tuning. I broke the rules. Any carburetor, when you're tuning it up, do one thing at a time. If you do a bunch of changes, you're not going to know what affected it. I made the mistake of doing a few things. The jetting that was in it was causing me to choke if I gassed it all the way, wide open throttle. You go like that and it would sputter. I'm going to go ahead and put the needle back on groove number 3. I'm going to try to do this without removing the carburetor from the bike. This is my first time trying to do this, and I'm getting less access than I had imagined. I just need to get the needle out and change the clip. Okay, so the needle's there on the 3rd groove. 3rd from the top, which is the middle. Put this back together. Should have put the top on already, because I'm worried about this screw right here and being able to tighten it. This one here is no trouble. What we have to do now is put all the parts back on and go out for a test ride. And we'll see how this runs.
Okay, well, let's try gassing it. It did good, but when I let off, I could have a fault. I don't think I'm going to really get any better at that, though. It responds very, very well on gassing it, and that's when you need it. You're not relying so much on kind of like taking half the throttle away. You're not relying on that under normal circumstances. When you crank it, it goes good. That's working good.